Hello and welcome to the Witches in Finland Halloween special. My name is Sami and I am a psychoanalytic psychotherapist from Finland. I'm so happy that you have found your way here. Let's spend Halloween together. In this episode I want to take you to the 17th century Finland and even further in the history. This episode is more entertaining and I focus more on witch trials and witches, walled up people, so-called immurement, and the movie Cross and the Flame. Next time I will talk again more about the psychoanalytical theories and topics, but now it is time for holiday and Halloween. Witches. Swedish Hälsingland soldiers had been brought to the Skansi, that means a small fortress it was in eastern Finland, and Finland that time was part of Sweden in the 17th century. If you compare this small Skansi to the normal castle, the walls were soil instead of stones. Karin Eriksdotter was a daughter of a soldier. Her family had moved to the Nevanlinna Skansi fortress from Sweden. Soon after Karin's family had moved there, the fear of witchcraft began to appear in the Nevanlinna. Fortress commander Alexander Moratz carried out the investigation. The commission consisted of 6 officers and 5 representatives of the church. It was the year 1674, and Karin Eriksdotter was 10 years old at the time. The children of the castle no longer dared to sleep for fear of being caught in Blåkulla. I will tell you later what is Blåkulla. In the small fortress, more than 20 people claimed to have been there during the night. Karin's father was a cavalry master, Erik Andersson from Delsbo, Sweden, their home region of Delsbo, Sweden, who had come under the power of witch hysteria. The parents of the children complained this to the king. The claimed witches were imprisoned, but this did not end the nightmare. The children were taken to a witch's sabbath at night anyway. Erik Andersson's in-laws wrote a worried letter to Nevanlinna, Finland. In it, they said that there was no longer any children in their hometown of Delsbo who had not been taken to the witch's sabbath at night. And worst of all, one of the girls in the village had said that she had also seen Karin there. In Delsbo, all women were accused of witchcraft, a total of 66 women. The witch commission of Nevanlinna interrogated 10-year-old Karin. According to Karin, she had been the victim of a witch as early as the age of 4, while the family was still living in Sweden. She said a maid came at night to wake her up and ask if Karin would like to go to the party. In the yard, maid Gertrud put a magic salve onto her mother's white cow, poured the cow upside down, and they climbed to sit on the cow's belly. They rose into the air and flew with the cow hoofed towards the sky. Gertrud had a candle in both hands. When they arrived at the party in the great forest, they met a man dressed in a velvet jacket there, who guided them to the party. The car was tied to the doorway where there were parking lot for the other animals, horses, and even people. The man asked if Karin wanted to attend the party, and according to the maid's instructions, Karin answered yes. The man immediately took 2 drops of blood from her finger. The man took the blood to Satan, who was in the chamber and was connected by an iron chain to the wall. Gertrude had to prepare food, cook some meat for the feast. The feasts began, men and women gathered at the table and said evil prayers. The meal ended with a dance. After that, all the women then went to the chamber and had sex with Satan. Then the feasts ended and they flew back home, Karin told the commission. Karin's fantastic story was a version of the Swedish witch trials, very typical Blåkulla stories. Karin's story even featured the same white angel who was in the Swedish Blåkulla stories. A white angel guarded the children in Blåkulla. Blåkulla means blue mountain. It's not a real place in Sweden, and its location varied a little bit in the stories. Karin had also attended 3 times to a kind of church ceremony. Karin told that it happened in a big church in a big city by the big lake. That church had only half a roof. The angel preached to the little children, but the devil preached from the pulpit to those who chose him and cursed and slandered. At the end of the sermon, the devil and his troops flew through the roof to the sky and from there on to Blåkulla. Gradually, Karin's stories became more awful. The devil was no longer beautiful and well-dressed, but he was ugly and had horns. The food was snakes and frogs. Karin, on the other hand, started spending all her time with the white angel in these new stories. Karin told also about the horn, where the fat, this magic flying soul, was stored to lubricate the cows before the flight to Blåkulla. When Karin was pressured to show where the horn was located, she dug only a loop from the ground that was commonly used to close the gate, to tie the gate. This was not enough. The place was dug deeper by the other people, and they found the half skull of a cow. But Karin saw a treasure. She said that the piece of skull was actually a silver bowl. She had received it from the devil. Even the beer was poured into this skull so that Karin would wake up to notice the lie. The beer spilled into the ground from the eye hole, but Karin only stated that it was a hole in the bottom of the silver chalice. Those who were present asked from God, so that Karin would see the truth. That's when Karin noticed that yes, it was only a skull, but at the same time her eyes turned blood red and blood began to drain from her nose. I have translated this story from the book Northern Witches by Mirkka Lappalainen, and I will continue it later. According to Nenonen 1992, there were witch trials in Viipuri, Karelia, only occasionally before the turn of the 1650s and 1660s. In 1684 and thereafter, witchcraft and magic trials clearly increased and doubled. The processes clearly diminished after 1695, but there were still a few lawsuits in the 18th century also. Viborg was the biggest city in that area, but the information about the witch trials in the city of Viborg itself are incomplete. In between 1624 to 58, all the accused witches were men. Later, the proportion of women in this area was around 20 to 30%, depending on the time. Viipuri, Karelia also differs from the rest of Finland in that half of the charges concerned magic, the so-called white magic, or healing magic, or magic for the good fortune, not for the harm or curse. Most convictions in the witch trials have been handed down for magic, but a significant proportion of the convictions have remained unknown. It is also possible that the legal processes also were stopped already in the beginning of the witch trial, that they did not lead into sentence or punishment was a fine, typically 40 Finnish marks. It could be public whipping, or the punishment was so-called church penalty, for example, standing in shame at the lobby when people came to church. Of the charges, which accusations brought by an individual person, 71% ended and there was no sentence, but only 47% of the charges brought by the officials. The former were largely prosecuted for witchcraft, and the latter focus on, for example, on healing by witchcraft or magic. In this way, according to Nevanlinna, the actions of secular and religious authority can be said to have increased the number of witch trials. Government felt that it knew a better and more advanced way of life, but perhaps the common people were not ready for this. Torture was illegal under Swedish law, which certainly did not prevent the use of violence, so it is possible that it happened to get confessions or prisoners were treated badly. Nowadays, we learned and we know that people intend to treat other people quite badly. You have probably heard about the test that was done in the Stanford University when Philip Zimbardo and his colleagues randomly assigned students to play the role of prisoner or guard in a mock prison. The students assumed these roles all too well. Those playing the role of guard became quite aggressive, and those playing the role of prisoner became passive, helpless, and withdrawn. People got into their roles so much that their personal identities and sense of decency somehow got lost. Before I continue the story of Nevanlinna, I will tell you a little bit about another Karelian fortress and the witch trials near it. The castle of Käkisalmi, situated at Karelia near River Vuoksi and Lake Laatokka. Let me remind you that before our independence, Finland was a part of Sweden and later also Russia, and the border was moved several times. One clear memory of those times before the independence, 1917, is a long fortification system that was built in the southeastern part of Finland. The first parts of the system were already built during the Swedish era, and Russia continued building in the late 18th century. Käkisalmi County was an administrative area formed around Käkisalmi Castle and paying tax on it. Kimmo Katajala has studied witchcraft and magic accusations in Käkisalmi County district councils in the 17th century. However, no data has been preserved for all years. In Käkisalmi, a total of 24 sentences were handed down in witchcraft and magic trials, none of which were death sentences. According to Kimmo Katajala, 1997, in 1682, Lauri Laatikainen's daughter came to tell the district how their father had been beaten to death with an axe. The killer had escaped from the area, but his wife testified in the court. The wife said that the deceased, Lauri Laatikainen, had appeared to their house drunk on Christmas Eve and demanded beer. When his husband, the master of the house, had ordered Laatikainen to leave, he had cursed. Laatikainen had also walked around their house 3 times and witched at the same time. Laatikainen had cursed.
Kuinka sinä olet rupinen akka tehnyt rupisia lapsia, et koskaan enää tule syömään jouluateriaasi terveen.
I tried to translate this. Laatikainen said that how you, a woman with scabs, had made some children with scabs. You will never eat your Christmas meal healthy again. At the trial, others also began to point out how Laatikainen had threatened them as well and ruined their beer brewing process. Although the host of the house was guilty for killing a man, the court session turned into the witch trial of the deceased Laatikainen. Okay, next I'm going to talk about, like I usually do, about one witchcraft movie. In this time, the movie is called Risti ja Liekki from the year 1957. It's directed by Armand Lohikoski. You can translate the name of the movie into Cross and a Flame. It is a drama film set in the early 16th century. This is not actually a movie about witches, but it has an ending connecting it to the series that I have been talking about in my podcast. Male protagonist is an kalpa ritari. Kalpa is a kind of sword, epee, if I understand right. And ritari is a knight. Le chevalier à l'épée was a like order of knights templars, probably better, a medieval Catholic knighthood operating in Livonia, founded in Riga in 1202 to convert the Baltic inhabitants to Christianity. The founder was the Pope's commander, the Bishop of Riga. So, Olavi, Gideonin poika, Gideon's son, that is played by Tauno Palo, who is most famous old-time film actor in Finnish comedy, drama and musicals, who returns from conversion work to the bishop's castle, falls in love with young Miriam, that is played by Anneli Sauli. However, the jealous monk Rasmus, played by Tarmo Manni, finds out about their relationship and becomes an obstacle to their happiness. The film is based on the screenwriter Hilve and Veli Mustonen's radio play and Larin Kyösti's poem White Virgin, inspired by Estonian folktale, Legend of the Judge and the Virgin of Mirga. It is possible that the knighthood has had an impact on Finland, but I have not found reliable information that these kind of knights have ever stepped here. Movies are fantasies and filmmakers need great and selling stories. In this case, the movie was not a success. Back to the story. On the way back from the battle, the servant of church knight Olavi Gideon meets Miriam in the forests, who offers him something to drink. Immediately, love ignites. The scene ends with a kiss and an embrace. I think it's the fastest love story in Finnish film history.
Et tiedä kuka olen ja mistä tulen.
Arriving at the castle, Olavi meets a bishop who is terminally ill, and the bishop makes Olavi his deputy and follower. Miriam comes to the castle church and goes to the confession, Catholic confession, and says to the priest that a known brave and beautiful man has captured her heart. Olavi, of course, is the father there, and he understands that the girl is talking about himself, and he asks her for a one-on-one conversation. Olavi leads the girl into the secret chamber where he says that his heart belonged to the church, but love is stronger, and the scene ends in embrace again. In the story, the Miriam is hidden in the church choir. She pretends to be one of the choir boys, but the Dominican monk Rasmus, who had once asked Miriam to be his own and was rejected, became a monk, returns suddenly to the bishop's castle on his inspection trip. He identifies Miriam among the choral boys where Olavi has arranged the girl. Rasmus blackmails the girl for himself. Olavi, whose warrior blood is bubbling, chases after Rasmus to kill him, but does not reach him. Olavi wants to change his priest coat back to his warrior iron shirt and leave the castle with Miriam. Rasmus, however, prevents Miriam from leaving and demands his share of her body. He takes the girl to his chamber, but Miriam refuses to surrender. Rasmus says to her that you have made your own death sentence. Rasmus mixes the poison into the Olavi's wine Olavi is doing his priest work, and in the ceremony he drinks wine, but he's unaware that Rasmus had mixed some poison to his wine, and he falls to the ground. At the moment, Miriam reveals herself, and she runs to embrace the man lying on the ground. Meanwhile, the bishop dies, shouting Olavi's name. Rasmus steps in, reveals Miriam as a woman, and accuses her and Olavi of fornication and Miriam of witchcraft. Miriam is subjected to torture by Inquisition. She is found to be a witch, and the Holy Court convicts her. At trial, the dog, presumed to be under Miriam's spell, is ordered to show the witch in the courtroom. The dog catches monk Rasmus' robe. Anyhow, Olavi and Miriam are sentenced to death, to be buried alive in the castle wall. They face death with courage. Miriam says that she trusts God in love and forgiveness. In his guilt, Rasmus throws himself down a cliff to death. Cross appears in the sky. Best scenes of the movie happen in the labyrinth of the castle, and they were shot in Suomenlinna castle near Helsinki. That is all I have to say about the movie. You can find it free from the internet. I have again linked it in my Insta page. However, there's quite a lot of dialogue in Finnish, so you might only want to watch the trailer from the internet or just listen what I have to say next, because you can find this similar story perhaps in every continent of the world. Immurement, from Latin in, and murus, wall, means literally walling in, is a form of imprisonment, usually until death, in which a person is sealed within an enclosed space with no exits. Women in the Roman Empire who were Vestal virgins routinely faced immurement as a punishment when they were found guilty of breaking the chastity vows. Immurement has also been well established as a punishment of robbers in Persia, even into the early 20th century. Some ambiguous evidence exists of immurement as a practice of coffin-type confinement in Mongolia. As a motif in legends and folklore, many tales of immurement exists. In the folklore, immurement is prominent as a form of capital punishment, but its use as type of human sacrifice to make buildings sturdy has many tales attached to it as well. Skeletal remains have been, from time to time, found behind walls and in hidden rooms, and on several occasions have been asserted to be evidence of such sacrificial practices or of such a form of punishment. During the renovation of the 13th century castle of Dragsholm in Denmark, in 1910 a skeleton was found from the wall. The discovery seemed sadly confirming the account of the disappearance of the noble maiden Celestine Marianne de Bayonne Guldenstræde around 1550. The celestial father had chosen a nobleman as the husband of his daughter. However, Celestine was love in another man, not nobleman, and she came pregnant, which made her father furiously. He said that Celestine had to leave because of the shame to born her baby elsewhere. It is said, however, that the girl was drugged and immured into the stone wall of the castle. The inhabitants of the castle heard Celestine through the wall, but they could not do anything for her. Today, it is been said that Celestine moves around in the castle as a white maiden, showing a special interest in sleeping men. Remains of her dress can be seen in the museum. In Finland, Olavinlinna or Savonlinna was one of the castles that was built to protect against Russian attacks. It was built in 1475 and it was often under the attacks of Russians. I have personal connection into this castle. I have found out that my very distant relative have been working there. Måns Kumbul worked as a king's fisherman. In Savonlinna, there is also one ghost story associated with the castle, originated from siege of the Russians. The master of the castle, Swedish lord, had a daughter, Ingel, who was in love with a Russian officer. One evening she let him inside the castle. A cunning Russian officer betrayed the girl's trust and let the Russian troops in. However, the people of the castle defeated the invaders. As punishment for the betrayal, daughter Ingel was pricked alive into the castle wall. There's a legend that in this place grew one tree called Pihlaja. I think it's rowan in English. It is reported that at midnight it is possible to see the Ingel and the Russian officer. This immured maiden is known also for the song Balladi Olavinlinnasta. In the 1670s, Nevanlinna was one of the Sweden's eastern outposts. According to Mirkka Lappalainen, there were soldiers in the fortress who did not have much to do. Nevanlinna was not as strong castle as Käkisalmi, but it was a star-shaped sconce like I was talking about in the beginning. Inside the fortress were 6 log buildings housing a regiment transferred from Sweden. One reason I want to talk about this Nevanlinna case so much is because this is very unique in the history of Finnish witch trials, especially in the East, where, according to several scholars, there were no so-called witches' Sabbath hysteria. But in Nevanlinna, this happened. In addition to Karin, a 10-year-old boy, Göran Göransson, lived in Nevanlinna. His story was very similar to Karin's story. However, the boy added that the babies born of sexual intercourse between Satan and witches were boiled in a saucepan and their fat was recovered from them. The devil also had a book with the names of all who served him. Karin had seen the wife of the soldier Niels Bruun in Blåkulla, as well as several other wives living in the town and inside the castle of Nevanlinna. Göran also reported that the same soldier's wife was in Blåkulla in a witch Sabbath, and she had sex with Satan. Elisabeth Jakobsdottir was brought to justice. She was severely pressured. A total of 5 children had seen her in Blåkulla. Finally, Elisabeth asked what she should do. She was asked if she wanted to repent, and she replied, yes, yes. As the commission was not a formal court, there are no records left of the result of this witch commission. So we don't know what happened to her. A special feature of the witch hysteria of Nevanlinna was that in addition to this mass panic, the young men and soldiers seemed to be suffering from various ailments and injuries. The governor of the castle wrote to King of Sweden that more than 18 soldiers claim they cannot keep a watch because they are so tired that they were all the time transported to Blåkulla. A soldier named Hans had even spit blood after such a night trip. These accused women were sort of eye-catching already before the witch trials in their small community. I mean, they were somehow special. The other one had a dumb boy, and the other was known as a midwife. Well, it is known that the King of Sweden took the governor's letter seriously and sent a witchcraft commission to the Nevanlinna, but it is not known whether any commission arrived or how they acted, as no documents have been spared. The fate of these 2 accused women also remained open. 1674, the entire regiment was moved out of Nevanlinna. I will end here today. That was everything this time. Thank you for listening. And now I wish you a very good Halloween and welcome back to listen these exciting historical stories, movies and psychological theories. Bye bye.
Serpent.